So lots of noise around the vacant post at Lincoln City right now. Looking for a replacement for the Cowleys who went to Huddersfield. And most of the noise is surrounding Gareth Ainsworth. And perhaps not surprisingly, top of the league with Wycombe. He's very much flavour of the month right now. Surprise leaders in the division. Very much considered minnows at the level. And Ainsworth himself really set the cat among the pigeons with an interview with the Totally Football League show earlier this week, appeared to suggest he was open to the idea that he's ambitious and driven, wants to work higher up. The implication being that maybe he'd have a better chance of that with Lincoln than he has got with Wycombe in terms of resources. And on the surface, you'd be inclined to say that it's a good match because Ainsworth's track record reflects the Cowleys quite similarly in recent years. He was promoted from League Two a year earlier, has proven himself last season to, able to survive with Wycombe at League One level, and now finds himself top of the league in his second season at this level. Personally, I don't think it is a good match, and there's a few reasons for that. The first one being, the most straightforward reason being, it's always dangerous to just gravitate towards the manager who is flavour of the month right now, who is riding the crest of a wave. I think people get carried away with recency bias, and this is the highest point of Ainsworth's career. So you'd like to think there'd be a bit more substance to an appointment than getting a manager while he's at the at the real highest point of his career to date. Which is not to say that Ainsworth will not go on to manage higher, cannot become a manager that ends up at a higher level. But I think right now, based on what he's doing at this moment in time in Wycombe, I think it's dangerous to use that alone as a reason to appoint him. We need to remember that last season, Wycombe were pushing for the playoffs in February. It was a very congested division. Not many points between the top six and the bottom six. There was talk of Wycombe pushing for the playoffs come February time, and then he went on an awful run, 9 defeats in 10 matches. I think it was 13 matches without a win in total. 5 games of the season to go, found themselves just 1 point and 1 place above the drop zone in a real sticky patch. Luckily, they managed to get a couple of wins at the end of the season, playing teams who were worse than them, who were really sort of in deeper trouble in Southend and Walsall, both of whom ended up relegated. So they spared themselves, late on in the season, but it was a very close run thing. So, there's an idea in itself that Ainsworth himself can be a streaky manager, and I think there's reasons for that. He leads, if we talk personality typology and myers-briggs, he leads with a process called extroverted sensing, I believe, which, nicknamed sensation. It's very much a process that lives in the moment. It's all about immediate gains, not marginal gains like the Cowleys, where it's very incremental, step-by-step approach. Everything's very deliberate, working to a template, and, basically just enforcing the same ideas over and over and over again, and just kind of adding layers to the top of it as you go. It's all very deliberate and very well thought out and very well planned. Ainsworth is more of a short-term focused manager. It's all about immediate gains, and that might surprise some people in the sense that he, there was a 5-year plan at Wycombe after they came very, very close to relegation out of the Football League 5 years ago, and they worked to a 5-year plan. But that plan in itself was put in place by the chairman at the time, Andrew Howard, who was a very good friend of Ainsworth, and Ainsworth stuck to the plan in the broad sense, but remained true to himself as a manager. And in terms of that sensation process, that extroverted sensing process that he leads with, he's very much, though people of that personality type are natural gamblers. They're adrenaline junkies and love spontaneity and love to do things in the moment. Not very measured at all. Most of his success has come through recruitment. He's done some excellent recruitment in his time at Wycombe, and that's the one thing they've really got straight. And I think that's because it would be natural for someone of Ainsworth's type to be a really good negotiator, to have his ear to the ground and know exactly what players are available and where deals might be able to be done, how to how to persuade people to let those players come to Wycombe. A lot of loan deals involved in that as well. So, that's the type of manager that Ainsworth is, which isn't necessarily, a bad thing for Lincoln, having someone who's excellent at recruitment, but it doesn't really build on what the Cowleys have built, on what the Cowleys have, the foundations that they've put in place, I think could be lost a bit with Ainsworth at the helm. I think, there's a lot of continuity there in the way that Lincoln have gone about the business. And I think with Ainsworth, I don't think he'd necessarily anticipate problems coming that would see that system break down. He would only get in the job. He'd be able to motivate very well. He's an excellent motivator. But when the system starts failing or if he was to follow the metrics and the processes that the Cowleys have put in place, if he was to come in and consult with the Cowleys and ask them, what are the key performance indicators that you work to, and what should I be looking to get the best out of him, Matt? He might be able to start okay with that insider knowledge to begin with, but then once the system itself starts to falter along the way, I don't think he'll anticipate it. I don't think he'll know what's going on, and I don't think he'd necessarily really react to those kinds of problems quite well. I think it's only natural that Ainsworth is looking. He's basically put his name out there for opportunities that come along. I think people who lead with extroverted sense intend to be opportunists, and we talked about his recruitment being that's his key asset. That's what he's really good at is recruiting players, and sometimes without a lot of advanced planning. You look at the deals that he's brought in at Wycombe at this transfer window. 2 or 3 weeks before the season, Wycombe were looking like a club that were potentially going to really struggle this season, and he pulled some real rabbits out of the hat, towards the end of the window. I'm thinking of like Onyedimna Dimna coming back to the club, who he already knows from previous loan spells. David Wheeler, there's lots of Championship players who earned the right to go and play in the Championship, haven't quite succeeded at that level, but now dropping down to League One and playing under Ainsworth. And he's a great motivator and gets the best out of these players. So I don't think the problems would be immediate straight away, but I do think over time, I think the compound effects of this marginal gains approach that the Cowleys have put in place, I don't think that's suited to Gareth Ainsworth's style. And I think slowly but surely over time, those compound effects of what they've built up over the years would begin to slowly ebb away, and then Ainsworth would find himself in a position where he would be inclined to do drastic things to turn around any dodgy form that would be completely new to the culture at Lincoln. So for me, I don't think it's a good fit. I think that there will be jobs for Ainsworth out there. I don't think it's a case of Lincoln not being a big enough club, being the size of the job and his track record. I don't think it's anything to do with that. I think it purely comes down to personality, this, and I just think as a succession plan to following the Cowleys, you want to be looking at extroverted thinking managers as a process, I would imagine, not feeler managers like Ainsworth in terms of decision making process, which is more about motivation and working with people. And extroverted sensing, which is very much in the moment and not in terms of planning and deliberate approaches. I think on both of those counts, I don't think Ainsworth's a good fit. So I'd be inclined to look elsewhere.